welcome to Imagination Mansion. So in today's video, I thought I would go through some of the books that I have that are Halloween, spooky, autumnal themed, and I thought I would go with them with you. So first up is one that I picked up from a charity shop, and that is The Blood Red Army by David Bishop. It seems to be a very traditional sort of like zombie book. Haven't really read any like actual like zombie novels. I have this, which is How to Survive a Zombie Apocalypse. I have had this book for years. This was a hand-me-down from my brother, who does read zombie fiction, but it honestly just sounded fascinating, so I picked that one up. I haven't left myself anywhere. Next up is a classic. It is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. See that there? It's the little, what's it called? Macmillan Collector's Library edition. I've never actually read this, and I do intend to at some point. I like the little quote they have on the back as well. I beheld the wretch, the miserable monster whom I had created. And yeah, there we go. I also like these little additions as well. Next up is one I have read, and I quite enjoy, is When Shadows Fall by Brian Scott Smith. Now this is another charity shop buy that I got years ago. A guy is investigating his aunt's death because she died in a traffic accident, and she's a very careful driver, so he's like, okay, I want to investigate. And then he finds this like cult that's living next door, and it's about like him clashing with them and the horror situations that ensue from that. So that's that one. So next up we have a couple of Doctor Who books, actually. So these two are my favourite. I do have a few Doctor Who ones, but these are the ones I go back to read the most. And they are Martha in the Mirror by Justin Richards. So this one is obviously with 10th Doctor and Martha Jones. And it's basically about, there's this magic mirror, and there's this little girl that's like running around the castle and stuff, and seeing how these two things are linked. And obviously there are like hijinks and typical Doctor Who monsters and things to be found. Like, really like this one. And my favourite is The Deviant Strain once again by Justin Richards, so apparently I just like his Doctor Who books, which is the 9th Doctor and Rose. And it also has Jack in it as well, as it has Captain Jack in it as well, my favourite trio. And they end up landing in sort of like this Soviet naval base, and there's something supernatural going on with the submarines. And so it's just very, I just love this one. It's great. I just love the way the characters are written. I love the situation they're in. I love that it's, like I said, 9, Rose and Captain Jack are like my favourite trio in Doctor Who, so it ticks a lot of boxes for me. So the next two are both Sarah Anderson like comics. So we have the first one, which is Fangs, which is a love story between a vampire and a werewolf. I love that. I Wonder Loves Blood. And yeah, it's very simple design, but if you like Sarah Anderson's work, you'll probably love this one. And it's not a fully cohesive, like it's not a cohesive story, it's more episodic, but I love it. And the next one is Cryptid Club, and I love this one. It's so funny. It's basically, if cryptids exist, what would they be like? And this one's in colour as well. and yeah, I love it so much. It's great. Next up is another classic, this time a drama, Dr. Faustus. So I studied this in A-level and I loved it. It's where the whole Faustian bargain thing comes from. You know, a typical man thinks he's more powerful than the devil, all that kind of stuff. But I love it, and I think that's a young Jude Law on the front. So, you know, I got a good cover as well, apparently. So there's that one. Next up, I actually have an older edition of this. Edgar Allan Poe, Tales of Suspense. But I found this one at a charity shop again. Like in really good condition, like it still has like the little leaflet it came with and all that kind of stuff. I love Edgar Allan Poe stories, so this is only some of the stories, so the short stories that he wrote. The other edition that I have, this one that I have also has his poetry and also some of his essays. So this one is only the stories, but it is also just incredibly beautiful. There is also some, like, it's also got some illustrations in it and stuff like that, so it's just a really nice edition. It's like the Reader's Digest edition, and there was a bunch of these in the charity shop, so they clearly, someone had either donated them all at once, or someone was clearing out someone else's house, because I also managed to get the Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes one as well, which is also very nice. So next up we have The Best in Weird Fiction and Ghost Stories of Arthur Machen. And this is an annotated and illustrated edition. I got this from my trip to Edinburgh last year. And I'd never actually, I think I'd vaguely heard the name before, but I never actually come across any of his writing before. It also has illustrations and things inside as well. And it does have like actual sort of like annotations, and not annotations in terms of like they've written in the margins or anything, but it does have footnotes and thoughts and sort of like what these themes could be and stuff like that, which is interesting, but I have a feeling the first time I read it I'll just ignore those. So that's that one. Another one I got from Edinburgh is The Resurrectionist by E.B. Hudspeth. So this is basically a sort of like non-fiction of a fictional person who basically constructed these monstrosities, and like it's got beautiful, beautiful pictures. They are a bit intense, but it's just, it looks so pretty. And it's sort of like split into two, so it's got like the fake biography and then sort of like the fake work in the back of it, and it's just so macabre and so cool, and like look at that on the back. It's just so cool. Ooh, another one. I think I showed this last year actually, and I still haven't got around to reading it, even though it's small chunks of text. But it is Murder Maps by Dr. Drew Gray. And yeah, it's just a bunch of famous murders and where they took place, and then you've got, yeah, maps of where it took place, and it just looks very cool. Next up, I have a very random one that I remember finding, which is The Penguin Book of Exorcisms. Yep. Here's what it says on the tin. It's basically just going through history and looking at all the reports of exorcisms and compiling them into a book. Ancient, Greco-Roman, medieval, early Europe and America, Jewish, Islamic, Asia, and then modern ones as well. So it's got them all. So there's that one. So this one I think I've talked about this one before on my channel. I have read this one actually. It is The Ruin of All Witches by Malcolm Gaskill, and it's essentially the tale of how a American hamlet village falls prey to the witch trials, and how sort of like everyone gets caught up in it, and how people get blamed, how people get targeted, how people start like blaming people, and the hysteria that kind of comes with it. So that's that one. Next up is a children's book, which is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I love this book. It is very good. It was actually gifted to me by a good friend from university. It's basically about a boy who has been raised by people who work in a graveyard, and so he basically lives in the graveyard. And it's about him interacting with all the different ghosts, as well as people outside the graveyard who are trying to like bring him harm and all that kind of stuff. Next up is a very classic one, which is H.G. Wells' A War of the Worlds. I love this book. As you can see, it's been very well loved. It's one of my favourite science fiction. It's very eerie, and it's just, yeah, all the people he bumps into, all the situations he ends up in, and most people know this story. So that's that one. So next up is a small press book, which is A Grave Affair. And the thing that drew me to this one is the fact that it's set near where I live, but it is essentially about a woman who retreats to the countryside, specifically the lakeside, so the Lake District. So it's set round Wastwater, and yeah, spooky ghosty things start happening, and I was like, local spooky ghosts, I will read. And it's quite dense actually, so when I do eventually read this one, it might take me a while, but it definitely sounds good. And next up is Interview with the Vampire. I once again have read this one, really enjoyed it. It's basically about how do you deal with living forever. How do you live forever knowing that you have to like kill people to survive, essentially. It's a classic, it's very beloved. I also really like it, so there's that one. Another classic that I haven't read yet is H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories. I have like flipped through and I've read little passages, so I do know I like his writing style. I just haven't deep dived and actually committed myself to a story yet. So I will eventually read this one. So next up is another one that I read for A-level, and that is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I've got the Penguin English Library edition, which is very pretty. I do like it. I quite like this one. I remember when I got it, I was surprised at how thin it is. I think just because so many things revered as like classics are huge. Just think like Middlemarch and Tessa Doonerils and all that kind of stuff. Like, they are huge books. And then this one's just skinny legend. So this is incredibly battered. So this was another gothic one that I read for A-level, and this was also the start of my love for Angela Carter. Mine is filled with annotations from school, and because I occasionally think like, oh, I should get a new edition just because it is like kind of tatty and covered in annotations and all that kind of stuff. But I also kind of love the annotations, and looking at this, I do see the appeal that people have of annotating their books, because then they go like, oh, this is what I like. It's almost like a record of memory, because it's like how you felt when you first read the books and stuff like that. Like, obviously mine isn't how I felt, it's just all the themes and literary devices and stuff that I needed to remember for my exam, but still, a little fragment of history there. Next up is John Polidori, The Vampire and Other Tales of the Macabre. Is it macabre or macabre? I never know. I have read, I think, most, if not all, of the tales from in here. Like, The Vampire is by far my favourite, but there is another, I can't remember which one it is, but there is another one that I loved, and they're just very, very good. They are kind of written in just a very old-fashioned way of just blocks of text. So if you do struggle with that, I may recommend like either like a different edition or maybe like an audiobook or something like that if that's more your thing, because there are just, yeah, just walls of text. Like that straight up has 2 paragraph breaks. But it is very good. Yeah, there's that one. And then last up is one of my faves, which was another hand-me-down from my zombie-obsessed brother actually, which is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. It is what it says on the tin. I think they've made a movie about this now, so a lot more people know what it is, and honestly, it's great. I love it. Like, if you don't like gore, don't get this, but it is really good. I absolutely love it. Like, it's even got like little, I was like, I'll see if I can find a non-gory one for your job. Oh yeah, you can have her karate kicking Mr. Darcy across the room. What a brilliant sketch. But yeah, it's a good time. I do also have Dracula, but I'm kind of waiting to read this until I buy myself a copy of actual Dracula. Just because apparently there's stuff mentioned that like might not make sense if I haven't read the original. So I will, that's probably a task for me this season, is to buy myself a copy of Dracula. I mean, we have several at my workplace, so I'll probably just pick it up there, but I also have that one. Yeah, so that is all my like spooky themed books that I own. So I think I might just quickly zoom through the books I'm reading at the moment. Because I have 3, because of course I do. First up is a reread, which is the Sustainable-ish Living Guide, Everything You Need to Know to Make a Small Change That Makes a Big Difference, by Jen Gale. And it's quite funny because I lent this to my parents, and then they bought their own copy because they wanted to scribble all over theirs, which is fair enough, because it does have like little task lists and things in it. And yeah, we went to the beach the other day and my dad straight up walked down the beach, found a flower pot of all things, and just ended up putting some trash in a flower pot and then chucked it in the bin. So, go my dad. And go this book for teaching him how to do it. So 2 very different books that I'm reading at the moment are Buried by Alice Roberts. If you remember, I previously read her other book, Ancestors. Very good. This is sort of like the follow-up. It's kind of related. It's certainly on a similar topic. But I am halfway through and I am enjoying it so far. And then next up, which is a bit more of a niche one, is Following in the Footsteps of King Arthur by Andrew Beattie. But yeah, I've basically read the beginning, which is basically just an introduction to where the myth of King Arthur comes from, how different authors built up on it, and then it's about to go through all the different places that are mentioned in all the different myths. So I am looking forward to continuing reading that. And that is the end of this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and do you own any of these spooky books? What spooky books do you own? Leave a comment down below. Are you a lover of the season? Are you as upset as I am as they're already started putting out Christmas stuff? In fact, they started putting out Christmas stuff at like the start of October, and I was like, where is my orange and black? Where is it? Give me my Halloween, please. And they're like, no, Christmas. And I'm like, at least let bonfire night happen, jeez. And subscribe. I do have book-related videos. I'm starting to think about branching out, but yeah. Keep up with me and all my stuff. I'm BabyFrog96 on most other socials. And yeah, I will see you again next time. Bye!